Christopher Schindler has a chance to write his name in Huddersfield Town legend. And he takes that chance!
Town play down the left and Moy stayed onside. Here's Mounier! 2-0 Huddersfield Town on the opening day of the Premier League. 1-2 wicket from the... Here's Moy, right-footed! 1-0 Huddersfield Town! Lindelof misses his header. De Quattro's in. Round De Gea. 2-0 Huddersfield Town. 2-0 Huddersfield Town. Here's Zanka to turn it into the pass. Yes! And Cummins scored. Cummins has scored one of the most important goals of Huddersfield Town's history. De Quattro's forward. De Quattro's got the better. Yes! And Laurent De Quattro scores. Laurent De Quattro scores.
Okay then, good evening and welcome to the post-match recovery show. I'm Jay Singh and I'm joined by Joel Granger, who will be taking you all through Huddersfield Town 2-2 draw at Crawley Town. Joel, good evening mate, how are you?
Yeah, not bad mate, a relatively disappointing result for sure, but it was an entertaining game at least, we've got that.
Yeah, no, so you were at the game today, weren't you?
Yeah.
You were down in Crawley. I wasn't, so I've seen the highlights. You'll have to guide me through this, but from what I gather, an entertaining second half, but ultimately one. Town couldn't come back up north with all 3 points, and that's really what we wanted today, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think after the disappointment of the Tamworth match, I think we really needed a strong performance and 3 points. And I think for portions of the game today, especially during the second half, we maybe did get that strong performance that we were looking for, but ultimately it is the 3 points that you want, and we couldn't come away with that.
Definitely. I'll ask you this. Do you think, looking at today's performance, there was a slight hangover from the Tamworth disaster? Because obviously that'll take a lot out of the players, and it's a big defeat to shake off. You know, looking at momentum, Crawley are one of those teams, with all due respect, that if Huddersfield Town are serious about promotion, we should be wiping the floor with.
Yeah, I think there were elements of a hangover, especially during the first half. Other than that Ben Wiles chance, which I'm guessing you saw if you watched the highlights, that was probably the standout moment of the first half. It was very, very tit for tat. Obviously, until they scored, both just sort of playing around in the middle of the pitch, quite scrappy. Neither team could really get much of a foothold in the game, and it did kind of remind me of that Tamworth game. Kind of, you were watching, you think, yeah, this game's going to be decided on, a set piece or a penalty or kind of something. No team looked like they really wanted to win the game, if you know what I mean. But I think maybe in the second half, especially once we went down once again, it was 2-1. We certainly played with maybe a little bit more freedom, and yes, but I don't know. It is weird. There were definitely elements of that hangover, and I do think the players look nervous. But I mean, can you blame them? I think that's probably what you'd expect. No.
I think so. I think obviously the last Friday's result was catastrophic, let's say, for Town, because yes, we were on national TV. Yes, we were supposed to wipe the floor with Tamworth, and when you turn up with a relatively decent side and you lose out to a bunch of part-timers who want it more, that's obviously going to ask questions of the character of the squad and the manager as well. So I'm not surprised Town haven't come away with 3 points today, and it's quite a theme typical of Huddersfield Town that we don't put teams that we should be beating to bed. Would you say we had any huge chances before the Ben Wiles chance? Because that, to me, I mean, yes, it's straight to him. It's really onto his step, and it's straight at the keeper. It's a huge, huge chance, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a big chance, and to be honest, it was probably the first meaningful chance of the game. I think there was one point where Marshall closed down the keeper and kind of got something on it, a bit reminiscent of Danny
Heffley's
Ward a
goal.
few years ago at West Brom. I don't know
West
if you
Brom,
remember
yeah.
that one, yeah. But he couldn't quite direct his deflection towards goal. I think, I mean, all the play was down the other end, and obviously with it being such a small ground, you were kind of almost on pitch level, so it was kind of hard to see what was going down on the other end. I think there was maybe a chance for Radulovic where he kind of, I can't work out whether it got blocked right in front of him or whether he kind of scuffed it. But yeah, other than that, the Ben Wiles chance was really the only one we had in that first half, and I think if he had that again, he'd score. I think he kind of probably had it in his head that as long as I get something on this and direct it towards goal, the pace of the ball will kind of just take it in. And to be fair to the keeper, I think he positioned himself well and got his body behind the ball, which is what you need to do. But yeah, that kind of was the only chance before Crawley eventually took the lead.
Okay. And it was some goal from Crawley, actually. Before we get on to that, I will say those listening, do feel free to request a mic and have a chat with us if you wish. But yeah, Crawley's goal, 42nd minute, Hepburn Murphy. It's some finish, but do you think it's fair to question the defending? Brodie Spencer probably had to commit himself. Town were caught. They were really caught out. He's cut in, and yes, he's done very well to beat Chapman and curl it in inside the far post. But could Spencer maybe not have been that zealous in his tackle? Could he have stood him down? I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, well, I mean, first of all, credit to the Crawley play. It was a very, very good goal, good finish. But yeah, I think there were quite a few errors in the lead up to that goal, really. I think it started when Matthew Pearson stepped up into midfield, as kind of Duff wants his defenders to do. And kind of at that point, when you step up, you either need to win the ball or foul your man and draw a free kick for the other team just to stop any forward momentum. Pearson failed to do either of those things, even though he did kind of go straight through the Crawley player. The ref wasn't interested. And then obviously the ball's out on the left-hand side and it's the 1v1 situation. And what we love as Town fans about Spencer, I think, mainly is his big tackles where he sort of slides in and stops a goal-scoring opportunity. And I think he's very good at it, but I think his success in past might have made him a little bit overconfident in this situation because, let's be honest, he gets it all wrong. And then he just leaves the path open to goal for Hepburn Murphy. So, yeah, I do think Spencer probably could have stepped him up, but then, you look at the finish and again, maybe another error. I think Chapman possibly could have maybe closed the angle a little bit more, but he's probably hesitant to come too far away from his goal. But yeah, it was a well taken goal, but I do think there are errors. But I think Duff said this before. If no one ever made any errors in football, there wouldn't be any goals. So yeah, it's as simple as that, really.
Definitely. I agree with you. I've got that written down, actually. Pearson, if he'd have won the ball, I don't think we would have been talking about this goal whatsoever. However, we move on. If he does win the ball and we go and counter and score, we're talking, what a tackle from Pearson. He started the counter-attack off. It swings and roundabouts. It's one of those things. Obviously, I've not seen all the game. Joel, do you or anyone else in the space think that was a deserved lead for Crawley at the break?
No, I wouldn't say so. It wasn't undeserved, but I wouldn't also say it was deserved. I think, the first half was very, very uneventful, as we've already said, and I think 0-0 probably would have been a fair result. I'm pretty sure that was their first shot, actually, that they scored with. So, yeah, I mean, I don't think it was a particularly deserved lead going into half-time, but, as you've said, that's very typical of Huddersfield Town, really, isn't it? We kind of have quite a lot of the play and we're doing okay, we're in the game, and then a couple of errors and all of a sudden we're 1-0 down, and you can tell in the crowd. I mean, I'm sure it was like this at Tamworth when we went 1-0 down as well, but as soon as we go 1-0 down, it's just dejection within the supporters.
Here we go again.
Yeah, like no sort of, and this isn't a criticism of the supporters, it's totally valid because of what we've been through over the past few years, but no like spirit or like passion to try and get back into the game. It's just like, oh, here we are again. And I think that maybe bled over into the second half until we scored. Really, I think that was kind of the feeling. But yeah, back to your point, I don't think it was a particularly deserved lead for Crawley, no. But hey, what can you do?
Okay, and half time, Michael Duff switched it up, bringing Callum Marshall off for Reece Healey, and 15 minutes later, he was rewarded with a goal. And you know what? Really well taken header. He's done well to get down on the angle. I don't know if that was straight off the training ground because of how tame Wiles' corner was, but I don't think Town fans cared at that point. It was a really, really nicely finished goal, and Town are back in the game.
Yeah, I think the change was one that was certainly needed. I think every Town fan there was urging Duff to make a substitution. It could have been either Radulovic or Marshall, really. Neither of them had a good game, to be honest. I think Marshall struggled to hold the ball up, kept on losing it. Radulovic was frustrating, to say the least. So I was thankful to see Healey come on, kind of worried every time he touched the ball in case he fell on the floor screaming in pain.
Broke
But
himself again.
he got through the game, we think, and yeah, it was a well taken header. I do think it was probably something that was rehearsed because every corner prior to that, I'm pretty sure, was going to the really deep to the back post towards Pearson or Lees. So their keeper was actually kind of positioning himself quite deep in his goal and anticipating the deep corner. So when it came to the front post and Healey nodded it towards goal, the keeper was kind of caught a bit off guard, and I think that's probably why he didn't save it, because it was quite a tame header. But yeah, delighted to see Healey back. His general play was pretty solid. I think he contributed not just with a goal, but linking up the play, getting on the ball in dangerous areas. He's a very, very lively player, and I think when you're chasing a game, you need a player like that.
I agree. You know, he certainly puts himself about. We'll just go back to Bojan for now, and I'll go to the comments on our post. There's one from Corky Sapper here. I won't read the first line because we try to be PG. However, they've said, imagine signing Radulovic and thinking he was capable to score goals in the Championship. Yes, we signed him in the Championship. We are now in League One, and he scored one goal all season, 2 goals in total for Town. You were there today. We both seen him turn out a fair few times now for Town. He's taken a few opportunities, but he's just lacking that final product, isn't he? I mean, he came to England. He didn't enjoy it. He said that in the media. He's up in the gym at Lindley every day. My mates see him. He needs to fill out a bit more, and he needs to get to know the league a bit more. But I think that's where having someone like Reece Healey, or when fit, Danny Ward, comes really valuable for Town, because they know the league, they know English football, and sometimes that's really the best thing for the team.
Yeah, it's weird with Radulovic because he kind of goes up and down in my estimations a hell of a lot. Like, I think when he first came back into the team, I was kind of quite thankful he was back in the team. He was playing quite well and he got himself on the score sheet. But the past couple of games, I think he just looks, it's obvious, but he just looks like a player who's generally struggling. Like, the only thing he can really do consistently to a decent enough standard is the kind of dropping into the middle of the pitch.
Dropping in, holding the ball up.
Yeah,
round
exactly.
The corner,
Winning headers, he's not really doing, frankly. Getting in goal scoring positions. It's hard to know, really, isn't it? Because those chances that Josh Koroma had, I don't know if you saw them, there was kind of both at the back post, and you think, oh, well, if Radulovic should have had them, he'd have probably scored. But then you think, would Radulovic have even, been in that position? It's impossible to know. It's kind of only something coaches, I guess, can really see. But he doesn't seem to be getting any opportunities, and I'm not sure whether that's down to the players behind him or whether that's down to him just not really getting in goal-scoring positions. So yeah, it's frustrating, but I mean, Duff keeps picking him, doesn't he? Karoma and Healy were available today. Ward wasn't in the
Hmm.
squad, but he travelled, so he was clearly available for selection. Freddie Ladapo, I don't know what was up with him, but he might have just been left out completely. So
Yep.
there are options up there, albeit some people might not think very good options, but there is competition, and I think if Duff didn't think Radulovic was doing a decent enough job, he wouldn't keep picking him, frankly.
Yeah, fair enough. He must see something. We'll go to the 65th minute, the latest turn in the game. Max Anderson puts Crawley ahead, and there's three names I've got written here. Lees, Kasumu, and Longvik are completely rooted to the spot. And he finishes calmly, and it's a good finish. But, watching it on TV, it might have been completely different in the ground. It didn't look like great defending whatsoever from Town, and pretty much you can't have any complaints with that goal whatsoever.
No, I mean that was right down the other end to where we were in the away end, but you could kind of get a 2D picture of it almost. Yeah, it was funny really because for the prior sort of couple of minutes, Crawley were pressing. They were looking quite dangerous. And credit to Crawley, they do play some quite nice stuff in and around the penalty area, especially for a team that's not really filled with many superstar players at all. They do look like a well coached side. But yeah, again, it's just a calamity of errors, really, isn't it? Kasumu just completely is ball watching, frankly, and his man just runs off him. It's a good little through pass from the number 10 into Anderson, and it's a good finish, but you cannot be conceding a goal as simple as a pass, a turn, and a finish
Yeah.
in the box in League One. Longvik, you've mentioned Longvik and Lees. I can't really, picture them in my head where they would have been on the pitch, but I can certainly imagine them following suit to Kasumu and kind of doing a little bit of ball watching. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
especially, that wasn't long after we got ourselves back into the game and made it 1-1, and we were, pressing for that, what we thought would be a winner. And then all of a sudden Crawley are back up and it's 2-1 again, and we've got to do all the hard work again.
Yeah, and just looking at the goals from today and across, the season so far, some goals that we conceded are very typical of sides who are more than happy to ride it out in mid-table, not really challenge for anything, but equally not really be threatened with the possibility of relegation. And it's goals and it's days like this where and it's a big if we're going to make it out this league, you need to be, first of all, really tight at the back, not concede goals as a result of rash sliding challenges or ball watching. And as well, we need to be putting goals in the back of the net. I said it again, loads of people say it about Huddersfield, teams like Huddersfield we should be beating. Teams like Crawley, with all due respect to them, we should be beating as well. I've not really got much authority to comment today because I've only watched, the 3-minute highlights. But from what I've seen across the season, the comments that I've seen after today's game and effectively the 2 goals today, it just all needs to be a bit tighter. Because right now we're putting in some performances that are great, Bolton away and stuff like that. It was absolutely class and we played some brilliant football, but I think the majority of the performances this season are typical of those teams who are probably not going to make it out of the league. Do you think, would you agree, or I don't know?
Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, we've talked plenty about kind of the whole not necessarily putting in a good performance, but being able to come away with 3 points is,
Winning ugly,
the
yeah.
mark of a successful team. And you're right, at the moment, we kind of either play well and get all 3 points, or we don't play well and we're just not going to get 3 points. And, I look at, I think I've mentioned them before in this situation, but Derby last season, the amount of times that they were frankly rubbish, and, Paul Warren was getting calls for the sack, and because they were playing like boring rubbish football. But at the end of the day, they went up because they were still winning games, even though it was ugly. They were still winning games, and we just seem to not be able to do that. And maybe today is possibly a step in the right direction because we've been ugly and we've still come away with 2 points, not 2 points, a point and 2 goals. But yeah, it's difficult. I think we lack. Again, I said this in the midweek pod. If anyone gave that a listen, we lack match winners in the squad, and I mentioned Koroma as possibly being one. And he missed 2 chances to put us in front. And I think if Koroma had scored one of those chances and we'd have won 3-2, people wouldn't have really been mentioning the fact that we weren't very good in the first half, or we conceded 2. It would have been we've gone away from home against a reasonably tricky Crawley side, and we've got 3 points. But yeah, it wasn't meant to be, was it?
It wasn't, but Town didn't. So Town didn't settle for a loss. We fortunately hit back 3 minutes after Crawley's second goal through Herbie Kane, and actually it was a really nicely worked goal. You got Miller down the left side. He's clipped the ball in. Quite a speculative ball, actually. I don't think it was really aimed for anyone as such, but Brodie Spencer's taking it down on his chest, and it's a lovely cushion for Herbie Kane, who finishes really, really, really nicely. It's a great left-footed finish. Keeper left with no chance, and you're thinking then, well, go on, Tan, you can nick this. It wasn't to be, but it's a good sign of character that, so soon after conceding, we've got back into the game, and we really didn't mess around in doing so. Just a word on Herbie Kane today. I've seen comments on Facebook, Instagram, whatever, X, saying he was one of the better players today. Would you agree, Joel?
Yeah, I think I would. Yeah, he's classy, isn't he, Herbie Kane? He's good to watch, nice on the eye, and although maybe sometimes his decision making is slightly questionable, I think, for example, today I think he tried the fancy pass out to Mikael Miller a few times and got it wrong, and he probably shouldn't have gone for that pass. But if there's one person you want a bouncing ball to fall to on the edge of the box, it probably is Herbie Kane, because he's got that composure and he's got that technical ability to apply the finish, and we saw that it was a really nice goal, and it started with Mikael Miller down on that. Well, it actually started with Herbie Kane himself. He sort of worked the ball out wide towards Mikael Miller, who eventually put in a good cross. I think Miller's delivery was something that was mentioned by Plymouth fans when we signed him as something that he needs to work on, and I think it definitely still does need work. We saw that against Tamworth, and today there was far too many times where he gets that space on the edge, on the outside of the box, and you think, go on, nice ball now, and he just puts it somewhere where it's not meant to go. But he kind of got it right this time, ball into the back post, and yeah, as you said, it was a lovely little cushion down by Brodie Spencer and a delightful finish from Herbie Kane.
And after that, were there any real chances where you thought, we're going to nick it here, or was it just a nice, stale closing, what would you say? Well, it's 20 minutes really, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, we had a fair few quite quickly after that Herbie Kane goal, actually. As I said, the couple from Josh Koroma, both coming down the right-hand side. I'm not entirely sure who put the ball in for either of them. The first one, he really has to score. He somehow puts it wide. The goal's gaping. He's probably 6 yards out, kind of on the back post, and he heads it and kind of just gets it wrong, and it goes wide of the post. And then the second one, I think it's probably, the first miss is probably in his head, and he's concentrated a bit more, but then again he's probably trying too hard and heads it into the floor, and it bounces off the floor, and the keeper has to tip it over the bar. But it was a relatively simple save. Other than that, Ben Wiles had a couple of speculative goes on the half volley from the outside of the box. But, I think after it got to 2-2, Crawley probably thought, that's our scoring done now.
Yeah,
We need to
far,
try
far
and
from clear. Yeah.
play for a point, and they resorted to hoofing it long, which I think kind of shows that we did have control of the game, and if anyone was going to win it, it was going to be us. But no, maybe that's another sort of disappointment from today, the fact that I'd say we had 10 minutes from when we scored the equaliser where we looked like we might get the winner, but then after that we really did struggle to create much of anything, really.
Yeah, I think creativity is the buzzword recently. You know, not even troubling the score sheet at Tamworth and really not doing what we should have done today down in Crawley. I'll invite you all to request a mic as well, if you do want to. In the meantime, we've got a few comments here to run through, Joel. We'll start with Rotherham Terrier, who says it's perfectly fine and acceptable, the performance, if we are going to class a top half finish as a successful season. I think we probably covered the basis of that point a bit earlier in the show, and I'll just touch over it again. We do just need to be killing teams off, and it's just that extra few yards, on the run. It's that extra final pass. It's the aggression. It's the tenacity. It's just the 1% that right now Town aren't delivering, and teams like Birmingham and Wickham, thank God we don't have to face them next weekend, are. And that really separates the teams who are going to be in the Championship next season and currently Huddersfield Town.
Yeah, well, it's tough, isn't it? Every EFL league is a difficult league, and I think usually you get maybe one or two teams that genuinely look too good for the league and probably will get close to 100 points, and get in the automatic positions and go up. And I think possibly, I mean, Birmingham are that team. I'll say that with certainty now. Although they drew at home today, that won't faze them, I'm sure. And then Wickham, hopefully for them it lasts, but it might not. So they're probably the two teams in that scenario. And then you're always going to have teams scrapping kind of in the middle to top end of the table. Like, you look at West Brom in the Championship, I think they've not won in 7 or something. And they're still, like, right in the playoff picture still. They're, like, 7th or 8th, I think. Like, to get in the playoffs, you can lose plenty of games, you can draw plenty of games. But yeah, just, we might be mid-table, but I still fancy us to get in the playoffs. I really do.
Like you said, you can start really poorly. Town haven't, in the scheme of things. We really haven't. I remember a few seasons ago, Coventry and Borough were made up 2 of the bottom 3 in the Championship, and they played out a Championship playoff semi-final, 7 months later. So it's a long, long season. January is fast approaching, and Phil Marsh says, not good enough for promotion as it stands. We're such a soft touch. Big transfer window coming up. I don't trust the guy responsible for bringing in the players, though. Realistically, any January transfer window isn't as eventful as the big one in the summer, but I think we'd be flapping to say Town need reinforcements in January at this point. I think after Christmas, the season really starts. I think before Christmas, August onwards is kind of the trial run. I mean, we look at Man City in the Prem, they've lost 4 games in a row in all competitions, but I'm pretty sure they'll come back after Christmas and win, whatever it is, 18, 20 games in a row, just because that's what teams can do after Christmas. Do you think it'll be, I mean, I'm not comparing Town to Man City at all, but do you think we need to get to that kind of flag point, regroup, maybe a few signings in January, and then really, really hit the road running?
Yeah, I think you're right about, saying that we need reinforcements in January is probably a little bit crazy. I think we maybe need a couple quality additions, and they've got to be quality. They can't just be like squad players who might elevate us to kind of a team that might be able to fight for automatic promotion, possibly. Because I'm not sure we're quite there yet, to be honest, even though I am usually Mr. Positive. I don't quite see it at the moment. I mean, there's always going to be rumours floating around about Joe Taylor, especially given his recent absence from the Luton matchday squad. Doesn't seem to be in favour over there, and we all know what happened in the summer. So if we can bring in a couple of players of his quality, then maybe, yeah. But I think in regards to, hitting the ground running after January, one mark of a Michael Duff team that a lot of people have said is his teams often go on strong runs of form. They're a very big purple patch and then a few weeks off maybe kind of team. And let's not forget, we're unbeaten in 5 in the league, so maybe this is kind of the beginning of a strong run of form. And I do think reinforcements in January will probably help us go on a strong run of form, because with the amount of injuries that we've had recently, Duff still doesn't even know his best 11. The fans don't know the best 11. And when you're working with, a squad of maybe 22 players, and then all of a sudden you've only got 16 to actually pick from, you're always going to have your hands tied a little bit as a manager.
Definitely. I agree. We've got a request, so I'll let Rotherham Terrier in and they can say their piece.
It's all right with the saying about January for reinforcements and needing quality, but the thing that we lack is leadership. We've not got a single physical, verbal, however you want to pronounce it, leader on that pitch. The fact that Tom Lees is captain and that Jaheim Headley is part of a so-called leadership group tells me everything I need to know about this squad. There's no spine, there's no balls, there's no grab the game by the scruff of the neck. There's just no leadership anywhere that's going to be on the starting 11.
I can see your point. Do you think that's, like I said, we are very early in the season, and I'm not saying it's going to come with time, but do you think, there's players such as Jonathan Olga we've relied on for such a long time who, let's face it, wouldn't be a massive asset if he came into the team. Yes, he's such a big leader, but do you think there's a hole in the team when he's not present?
I'll be honest with you, I've never liked Oggy as a captain. I don't think he's a leader. Not on the pitch. Off the pitch, maybe. Don't know him personally, never met him. But on the field, there's too much blame, complaining, moaning, and it doesn't do anything. If he was such a good leader, we wouldn't have had such a bad last 2, 3, however many we want to call it, seasons. There's nobody people look up to. There's nobody that anybody will grab the game by the scruff of the neck. There's not even, I wouldn't even go as far as saying there's anybody with any character. 3, 4, 5 years ago, you could pick out players and who your favourite players are. Not necessarily the best, but your favourite for one reason or another. Now, I don't even know if there's any that I'd particularly like. It's bizarre.
Do you reckon though they'll take us to the Championship? What do you reckon? End of the season, say we're in May time. Where do you see Town? And some teams lead. And I'm not saying Town do this whatsoever. Some teams don't have one individual, and it's probably best not to rely on one individual. I agree with you. There's not many people who I think could sort this Town team out on the pitch from a leadership point of view. But where do you see Town in May?
With these lot as they are now, 8th, 9th. We've got the ability to finish higher. I do think we've got the ability. I just don't think we've got the character, the drive, balls, however you want to call it. You go back to when Lee Clark was in charge, and can't remember if it was the first or the second season. We just missed out. He realised it was a young team that just needed that bit of experience. He went and added the experience to it. We've looked at our squad from last year and not done anything about it. It's bizarre. We've added midfielder after midfielder after midfielder, but none of them want to take any responsibility for it.
Do you reckon that's fault of the boardroom? Would you put that on Kevin and his team? Where does that responsibility lie for you?
It's hard to say, innit, because we're not involved. You don't know if there's players that they've missed out on. You don't know if they've tried to buy certain types of players. When Wagner came in, the first thing he did was buy captains and leaders and people used to succeeding. We've just gone, oh yeah, you were quite good in League One last year. We'll have you. But not from anybody that's gone up or won competitions or done anything. It's just, oh yeah, you were quite good in this division. We'll have you.
I see your point because, it's frustrating how, 6-7 years ago we were in the promised land and we were beating the likes of Man United and, forcing draws at City and, drawing at Chelsea, and then you could see such leadership across the squad. I agree with you. Right now, looking at that and comparing it to the Premier League side, it's absolutely nothing. It's like it is moons and moons away from what we're watching nowadays. I wouldn't say we're in a leadership crisis. I think, we're so lucky to have been basically saved in 10 days by Kevin and, his brilliant investment from overseas. But I just think it's going to take time for Town to re-establish themselves. And, so many managers have said that. And it's hard to believe them. But I think ultimately, we just need to see results on the pitch.
Yeah, and the thing is, you can have all the best players in the world, but if they don't know what they're doing and there's nobody there to tell,
No, I agree.
Then you're not going to get anywhere. You can have a team of, I don't want to say second rate, but half as good players, and if you've got somebody in there organising, taking it by the scruff of the neck, showing them how to do it and getting them through, then, do you know what I mean? You can achieve as much as you want. Like, let's be fair, the year that we went up, Kachunga never in a million years should have been playing for a team that's getting to the Premier League and then playing in the Premier League based on ability alone. But it's attitude, approach, application, and he's been part of it and he's got there. We've got, you could pick players out from any team over the last 10, 15 years that have probably more ability than him. But
I agree. I mean, it's just that, it's that tenacity, it's that want. I mean, the perfect example was our last time out. It was Tamworth last Friday. They're a bunch of, and this is not to be disrespectful, they're a bunch of part-timers. They wanted it more than us.
Yeah.
And there's teams in the league who will want it more than us. They'll turn up and they'll force that attitude into their football. And I think at times, I don't know what you think, Joel, Town are lacking that in some areas.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what you think, Rotherham Terry, but do you think it maybe comes from confidence? Do you maybe think sort of results, if we start to get results, it might bring some players out of their shell into sort of, because let's be honest, players like Pearson and Lees and Kasuma, who've been here for quite a long time now, have pretty much just failed at Town. Like, results-wise, it's just been failure after failure after failure. Do you think maybe if we start to find a little bit more success on the pitch, they might find a little bit more success off it in a leadership sense?
No, I think, and I don't even think it's off the pitch. It's definitely on the pitch because we know how brilliant they are in training because we get told every week. But it's things like the nearest I've seen to what I would call a captain's performance was when Pearson was captain and he was playing in the middle of the back three.
Yeah,
and then all of a sudden Lees is being captain again. Mr. Charisma, who when he's in do you know what I mean? The way he speaks when he's in his pre-match press conferences doesn't seem any different to me to when he's on the pitch. And how is he going to motivate and promote anybody? But the thing that gets me is he says that there've been hard conversations, real conversations, truth told, and then it's the same team picked again. If you're late every day for work, right, and you're still getting all the overtime and all the best shifts, one or two things happen. Either everybody starts to hate you and hate the boss, or everybody thinks, oh well, I don't need to try as much because Joel's late every week, so I'll just do what he does and then I'll get rewarded for it. When players are putting in performances like Tamworth, and then you're getting picked again, and it's the majority of them that's getting picked again, two things are going to happen. You're either going to get people that are going to get annoyed and wound up, So Ollie Turton, why is he even here? He may as well leave. All right, what's point in him being here? From his point of view, he may as well leave because he's clearly not in the reckoning. Or everybody drops the levels because it's seen as acceptable. Because you've got people that aren't performing to the levels that you need, but they're still being selected and considered week after week. So why does anybody else need to perform any higher?
Yeah, I see your point. I definitely do. I think recently, certainly, as I said earlier, I think Duff's hands have probably been a little bit tied with injuries. I mean, Ayal Pender was our only midfield option on the bench today. You know, Evans out injured, Hogg out injured, Hodge out injured. I do think maybe once some more senior players like Hellick and stuff can get themselves back fit, there might start to be a little bit more rotation week in, week out in terms of performance. And on the subject of Tom Lees, I do agree with you. From our perspective, he is really, really uninspiring. I mean, he gave that famous press conference, I think it was, where everyone was slating him on Twitter, and he does seem really, really dull. But not to be horrible, but he does seem quite dull. But Carlos picked him as a captain. You know, Darren Moore, if that's any credit to him, picked him as a captain. I'm sure he was probably captain under Brighton, right? You know, plenty of managers have picked Tom Lees as a vice captain. So for me, there must be some reasoning behind that other than just the fact that he's experienced.
Yeah, it probably says a lot about the rest of the squad. I mean, not to pick on players and be horrible, but for Jaheim Headley to be part of a leadership group is frankly ridiculous.
No, I agree.
If he's there as a representative for the younger players, what are they looking up to? Because he doesn't get in the team regularly, so he's not.
And when he does, he's the most hot and cold.
Yeah.
Well, one of the most hot and cold players I've ever seen in a Town shirt.
Exactly. So what is he doing that the others can be looking up to?
I agree.
The only one from a younger perspective that I think is even anywhere near being classed as a leader is probably Jacob Chapman. I mean, when you watch Chapman, even in the warm-ups, when Nichols has been in goal and he's been firing the balls across or playing them in for him to catch, however you want to do it, every time Nichols catches it, he's clapping, he's saying, yeah, well done, he's cheering. You know what I mean?
Chapman's off.
Yeah, same with, like, forget age and everything. Do you know what I mean? Lees will put a tackle in or a block in and it goes out for a corner. Chapman straight over, tapping him on his back, rubbing his shoulders, geeing him up. And then you've got G Medley, who looks, half the time he plays, he looks like he can't be arsed. The other half, he looks like he can't remember how. And he's meant to be part of a league. And stuff like that, it goes a long way. Do you know what I mean? Like,
it does.
Look up to this person, you look up to him and go, well, he's either not in the team or he's crap, so what am I looking up to him for?
Yeah. Well, you're not. You're not, that's the thing. You're not at all. And, you know, you mentioned Kachunga and his will and his fight and everything that made him so good that season and such a good player for us. Ability wise, he wasn't great. You know, some of the lads on this team, ability wise, not great, and you know, Town fans will vouch for it. If you put a bit of effort in, if you put 110% in, even 100%, you know, the results on the pitch would drastically improve, I think, because I think Huddersfield Town have probably always had to compensate ability for a bit of fight and urgency. It's just urgency, you know. You got me thinking of Headley now. It's making me angry, but just players like him. You know what? When he's decent, he's really decent. But just show it. You know, just go out onto the pitch and whatever's happened in the last game, or if you're not being picked, draw a line under it and come out fighting.
Yeah, it is. It's right, and it's also the point of if you've been given responsibility of being a leader, then you need to take that responsibility and show that you deserve it. For me, it's just bizarre, and I do genuinely think that things like him being in a leadership group, Tom Lees being captain on the pitch, just shows how bad a situation it is. And then when you think about that, it's like, well, it's not a surprise that we can't get any consistency. And as soon as something goes against us, we don't know how to deal with it because there's nobody there to drive. Now, obviously, Duff can do what he wants on the sideline, but half the time you can't hear the stuff from the sideline when you're playing anyway. But there's nobody there to grab the team grab the game, however it is, whether it's through vocality, whether it's through leading by example. There's nobody I see in the squad, I'll be honest, that I think, yeah, I'd give them the captain's armband, I'd pick them every game, they'd be the first name on the team sheet, and they're going to get everybody else round and rallied to go when it goes against you. It's just completely absent.
No, I agree. We really don't deal with adversity well whatsoever. And, you know, I'd say, fortunately, we don't have to deal with Wickham next Saturday at their place, because I didn't really want to see that game play out. We've got Manchester United's under-21s in the Bristol Street Motors Trophy, and I think, if I'm correct, we need to win that to progress to the next stage.
Yeah.
So that's by our standards, that's quite an important game, because I think that competition gives us a decent chance of getting to Wembley and, hands on a bit of silverware, however credible it may be. But our next league game is on the 23rd against Charlton, who I believe lost today, but are still, they lost to Exeter, I think, but they're still around the mark where Town are. And that's going to be a tricky game. And, it's all been really good, relevant conversation, because we need a reaction from not only today, but the Tamworth game. And I know we're unbeaten and in 4 or 5 in the league or whatever it is, but you just can't help but feel that a win 2 weeks on Saturday will go a really long way.
Yeah, definitely. I think Charlton's form recently has been pretty terrible. So you'd think there's a possibility for 3 points at home there, but we've had some pretty feisty games over the years with Charlton. I don't think they'll be coming to our place, not trying. I think we've said it already plenty of times that for a lot of teams, this is going to our place will be one of the biggest games of their season.
Yep.
And they'll try. And again, they're a resilient team, and they're a team of fighters. You know what Nathan Jones is like. He's a nasty man, and he instills that into his team. So, as with every match, it'll be another tough challenge, and let's just hope maybe we can find a little bit more quality in the final third and get 3 points and make it 6 unbeaten. That'd be nice.
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. I will give everyone a last chance to put a word in, but if not, thank you all for tuning in. Thank you for speaking as well. Really, really good chat after today's draw at Crawley, and I'm sure Matt and Killer will be back, either maybe some sort of watch along for the Bristol Street Motors. If not, definitely a preview of Charlton. So
there's a team that is dear to its followers. The colours are bright blue and white. They're a team of renown, and they're the pride of the town. And the game of football is their delight. And all the while upon the field of play, thousands loudly cheer them on the way. Often you can hear them say, who can beat the town today? And then the bells will ring so merrily, and every goal shall be a memory. So town, play up and bring that cup back to Huddersfield. So town, play up and bring the cup back to Huddersfield.